Eddie, it's good to see you. I
don't see
apologize
Eddie
for not calling you back this weekend. It was very hectic for me and some others. But I'll talk to you privately about that. But thank you for coming. It looks like we have a full house and we have the whole committee here. So if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the special meeting of the Public Works meeting to order. The only thing on the agenda, excuse me, is the waste situation that we had this past week in Hendersonville. Thanks for joining, Scott. And so what I'm going to do, if there's no objection, I'm going to have Marshall tell us a little bit, get everybody a little background of what happened, as most of us already know, but we'll go ahead and do that for the people that may be watching on the Zoom or YouTube, and we'll go ahead and have that happen. So Marshall, go ahead and start off the meeting, and then the committee will join in. And as always in Public Works Committee, when we do have special meetings, the committee starts first, and then when the other aldermen have fellow questions, we'll go ahead and entertain those after the committee gets through. So go ahead, Marshall.
Thank you, Chairman. Committee members, to say the last several months have been unusual would be severely understated. COVID-19 has affected our country in ways one could never have imagined. All aspects of daily life have changed as a result. We are left adapting to a new normal, which is hopefully only temporary. One area touched by the pandemic that reaches every citizen is trash collection. Public Works staff, working alongside our vendor Waste Pro, strive to provide trash collection to every citizen without interruption. We work extremely hard to achieve this goal, and of course are frustrated, just as you are, when forces outside of our control prevent that from happening. You all know over the past couple weeks, the number of complaints has reached levels we have never experienced and are never comfortable with. In speaking with Waste Pro, as well as other municipalities, staffing has been directly impacted by the pandemic. Several Waste Pro workers have tested positive for COVID and are unable to perform job duties due to illness and quarantine requirements. The bar graph that I'm going to bring up now illustrates the number of misses over the past year. Can everyone see the bar graph?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Public Works staff report every call as a miss despite residents not having trash out in time. Yard waste mixed in with household garbage. And yes, even some people think we still have twice per week service even now. The city nor Waste Pro are satisfied with the current level of service caused by the pandemic, and the city deserves a solution. I propose for the next 90 days, we implement curbside only service with weekly evaluation, continuing to provide backdoor for those physically unable to take their container to the street. I don't want to upset residents who expect backdoor service. However, we're simply trying to provide a solution to collect trash every week and not continue to be behind. Curbside requires less staff and is a safer option. And of course, the city's bill will be adjusted for curbside during this time. I have spoken with Gallatin and Goodlettsville, as well as other municipalities who have curbside, and it seems they have not experienced staffing deficits in trash collection, but have in other lines of service, such as limb collection and recycling. I attribute this fact to curbside using fewer workers, and am optimistic we would experience the same result. In an effort to make this transition as quickly as possible, we can have a mass mailing go out by the end of the week or next week and post the message on every media platform that we have. And of course, I'm certainly open to ideas from the aldermen. Through this time, the Public Works Department plans to adjust staffing levels in order to handle the high call volume. And I realize there is not a perfect solution to our trash collection dilemma, but we appreciate the residents' willingness to work with us through this crisis. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Marshall. Appreciate your efforts there in the past couple of weeks. Before I open the floor to Pat and Eddie both, I was wondering if the folks from Waste Pro, whether they have anything they would like to say to us at all before we get into this. Mr. Joyner or Miss Kate, either one.
Am I unmuted? I just wanted to double check.
Hear you.
RJ, you're looking good, and I think Lori, you're okay too.
Okay. Roland, do you have anything to say?
He's trying to connect.
Hey,
Okay.
Yeah.
trying to look for Roland. He was on the.
Yeah, he's still on there, but it was looked like it was connecting. We're trying to connect.
Yeah, I'm just going to wait for him to, because I know that he wanted to speak.
Yeah. Maybe Tina can help us. It looked like he's trying to connect. I don't know.
Mr. Joyner, you appear to be in a bad area as far as connection goes. If you disable the camera, your audio may work better.
Hang on, bear with us for one moment.
Wait a minute, there he is. There you go.
What about now?
There you go.
Okay, I was trying to make it much easier by dialing in on my phone, but anyway, couldn't get it to unmute. Yes, we have not just in Hendersonville and not just with Waste Pro. We're all seeing, with the increase in volume and absenteeism that has spiked and related to the virus. We're operating in a lot of divisions and a lot of companies are operating, as shorthanded. We've worked with the city of Memphis. We did some combined, we perform basically 4 types of services for the city of Memphis. Household trash, bulk, recycling, and yard waste. So we have worked with them. We've done some combined services in the past with them, looking to try to make sure that we get the town serviced. With Hendersonville, we only do one type of service, and that is back door. So the only way that we could possibly improve our combined services is making the change from back door to curbside for a short period of time or until, we get to the new normal, whatever that new normal may be. We're open for suggestions. Obviously, I think the city is very aware that, Richie's been out with the virus. My office manager was out. Fortunately, she came back negative. We've had multiple drivers, whether they had it or a child had it and they couldn't come to work because the child couldn't go to daycare, just the whole gamut, if you will. So we're looking to go, like I said, look at it on 3-month intervals, see where we're at the end of 3 months, whether we want to extend, see if the stay-at-home order, lifts. And honestly, if anyone in y'all's other professions have tried to do much hiring of late, with the federal government, state government, and all the funding, people are getting anywhere from $800 to $900 a week to stay home. So there's not a whole lot of folks looking for jobs at this time, even with the high unemployment rate that we have. So we're looking for any type of consideration we could possibly get from the city. We did offer, when our initial bid came out, curbside service. So the rates are already for lack of better terms, in place, or we can transition over. Just looking for some consideration from Hendersonville and keep our partnership going. I think we've done pretty good up there. We've had a couple of boo-boos from the beginning. In the last couple of weeks, we've faltered some, but looking back over, the tons, and Marshall, we talked about this the other day, we're picking up an extra almost 21,000 pounds a day in Hendersonville. So that's almost 11 tons per day. So it's pretty significant increase. So it's causing some routes to make more than one trip to the landfill to where they was only making one trip before. And any type of help we can get to get everyone's service is greatly appreciated. Lori, do you want to add anything?
I just want to voice from my standpoint that our crews and our staff that are out there right now are working extremely hard to service the areas that are out there. No one as a part of our team wants to leave this garbage on the ground. We are just simply now facing a spot where we've got to find a way to fix this. And like Roland was saying, just for the interim, just to get us through this very difficult, strange time. You compound just anything and everything, whether it's the staffing, whether it's the families of the staffing, whether it's a simple issue that might arise with a truck that generally took, I don't know, 1 day to get apart. Now it may take 3-4 days, depending on the vendors that are sending that stuff in. Everything has just changed, and we can't express that enough. And like Roland's saying, it's touching everywhere. So resources that may have been available 12 months ago aren't necessarily available because they're all in the same circumstances that we're in, whether it's trying to find parts or trying to get people or borrowing a truck or borrowing a driver. It's one thing when you've got one division experiencing something. It's another situation when you have an entire company and an entire industry that's experiencing this. And I think that's what's making this situation different. And that's why we wanted to come together. We were already discussing this. Roland and I talked on Monday morning, and we were like, we've got to reach out to Hendersonville. We've got to put a plan in place should this situation arise. And then lo and behold, Monday came. Monday came, and the situation that we were hoping to prepare for and prevent or have something ready, it got here. Little did I expect to ever have a division that we had to pull someone from out of town to run because everyone was tested. That's just not, you can't run a business when the entire team is gone. So we had to pick up the pieces, and I think we did a fairly decent job of picking up the pieces and moving on through last week. And now here we are just trying to figure out what our plan is and how we can work together with the city to get from point A to point B.
We're experiencing, we're very close to the national average. Our company is. We keep a close monitoring on this. We're fortunate. I have several contracts very similar to Hendersonville, where y'all have your own disposal agreement. So we don't see the charge, the extra fees associated with disposal with the amount that the 30% increase we're seeing throughout our footprint. So Germantown, Memphis, City and Meridian, Mississippi are just a few in my area. So, and what kind of touching base on follow up what Lori said, sometimes when you start up a new contract or you get a something going on in the division that may need extra help, we have different crews inside our company to where we pay them bonuses to come into a division and work. Nobody's wanting to travel right now. No one's wanting to leave their home office and go to another city, maybe inside their state or outside their state, because they're not comfortable. So we're not able to bring in additional help from inside of our footprint because of the scare, if you will.
We often discuss bench strength. That's what we talk about within our company. And I think when we started this contract July 1 of last year, I think it was proven the amount of bench strength that we had because we had employees out there, but we had numerous employees following routes, watching collection. We invested heavily in the Hampton Inn in Hendersonville. So our bench strength is extremely strong. But when you take the whole spectrum here and inflict the same pandemic on everyone, the bench strength goes away. And it's not to say that it won't return, but it's not anything that this industry was ever expecting. And that's why we're having to work through situations differently. It's not just a Hendersonville issue. It's not just a Tennessee issue. I cover 3 states in bits and pieces, and I've talked to various municipalities. I talked to a municipality in Mississippi the other day that has 40 employees in their public works department that has shut it down for 2 weeks in the last 30 days because of COVID. So public works is being impacted. Waste Pro is it's across the board. And I think that's the biggest thing that I just wanted to express to everybody is that it's not just here, it's not just Hendersonville, but that our focus here is how we can work through this one. But it's not being just you guys.
All right, thank you. Now the committee members, Pat or Eddie, do you all want to hold your comments, or would you like to talk about it now? It's up, I've done that in my committee. I always allow y'all to say what you want to say, and let's talk about it first, and then I will end with my comments, and then the floor will be open up to Dave and whomever else wants to discuss this issue with. So Pat or Eddie.
Go ahead. Eddie, you can go ahead. I was looking at the contract here for a moment.
Oh, okay.
Couldn't hear you at the beginning when you said something. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I was going to defer to you with seniority as vice chair, but I have several questions for several people, Mr. Chairman. So it's appropriate now to begin asking those questions.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. First of all, OMA has an oversight responsibility. Everyone understands that of this contract. And so thank Chairman Skidmore for having this meeting. I think it was high time to have this meeting. So Marshall, my first question is to you. I've got questions for Marshall, for John Bradley, and for the company. So I'll start with you, Marshall. Can you put the graph back up, the complaint graph back up on, and can you expand it a little bit so that we can see the legend as well?
I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it on my screen now. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. Can everyone see it?
Yeah. Can you enlarge it just a little bit so that I can see this? I'm showing my age. I tell people not only is my eyesight worse, but believe it or not, I used to have a full head of hair when I was young. I used Head and Shoulders when I was young, but now I'm using more and Glow on my head. That's much better.
Makes you feel better. I'm young and bald.
Yeah, that's much better. So Marshall, let's see, it doesn't show July. July is about the same number as June, correct?
Yes. There you go.
And that's a partial month.
That's correct. I want to point out that's only the first about 3.5 weeks of July.
Okay. When was the first time that the company reached out to you and said, "Hey, we got a problem in Denmark. We got problems. We need to talk to you." So kind of bring me up to date on the communication that the company has had with you through this process, through this progression of complaints. Now it looks like we're averaging over 500 a month.
That's correct. We've going back about a week and a half ago, and they can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but a week and a half ago, they reached out and expressed desire to meet. And then we've immediately scheduled a Zoom meeting to talk about these exact same things that we're discussing now. And so it wasn't too long ago, week and a half that we started this conversation.
Although the complaint started peaking in June, it wasn't until a week and a half ago that the company reached out. We got a problem. We need to talk.
Correct.
And
So
if I may,
we knew all along. I mean, all along we knew there was issues with the coronavirus, but it wasn't until until a week and a half ago that we decided something. We had to. Something had to be done.
And if I may, regarding the complaints, just because I have been the person who has been looking at each one of those for pretty much the last 7 days, they're duplicates. I'm not here to tell you that there's not been an increase, but when I basically the complaint is logged, and then I was going in to handle closing out that ticket, making sure that had been serviced, etc. There were some people that had called 4 and 5 times. So are the complaints up? Yes. For the month of July, are they per se where the graph shows? No. And does that go across the board for every month? Yes. You've got things that aren't valid in there. You've got complaints that may be duplicated for some reason. I just wanted to put that out just from the standpoint of numbers.
Okay. Let me finish with Marshall first, and then,
Yes,
then
sir.
we'll go to you, Lori. So Marshall, you contacted Gallatin, and you contacted another city, I think you said, and you said that they weren't having trouble with garbage pickup, having trouble with limb pickup. Is that what you said earlier?
Correct. I spoke with Gallatin, Gillisville. I had staff members reach out to Germantown, Nashville. And they kind of all express the same, in some ways, the same thing. The curbside, which all those areas we reach out to offer, it's curbside collection. Of course, Germantown has the subscription backdoor, but for the most part, it's all curbside, and they have not yet experienced a problem with the curbside yet, but they've had to. With limb collection, recycling, all the other services they offer, there have been issues with that. And it ranges from, obviously people being sick, having to be quarantined. I mean, you name it, and they've had issues.
And in the cities that you mentioned, for the most part, the cities run the garbage service. They don't have a contract to run it? Or
well, in Gallatin situation, they do that in-house. So it's Gallatin, city of Gallatin employees. In Gillisville, they hire that out. Similar to what we do. And so of course Metro, they do both. They have in-house and contractors, but so far for the curbside collection, they haven't expressed any problems with that.
So were you able to contact a city that has backdoor pickup?
Germantown. They have a subscription. They have curbside and a subscription backdoor, which I think may be the closest thing that we could probably compare it to. I couldn't find a city in Tennessee that just had backdoor service, but Germantown, of course, Waste Pro provides service there, but they didn't express any problems yet with the collection.
So the cities that you contacted, and I'm trying to ascertain whether this is an isolated problem or if it's a common problem. The cities that have curbside, it doesn't appear yet in the anecdotal information that you've got. You didn't do a scientific survey, but you reached out and did several. It doesn't seem to be a problem yet in those cities that have.
Yeah, they did. One thing I will add, in most of the ones that we spoke with, they did say the volume trash is increased significantly. They're having to pick up a lot more than they ever have been.
And then you contacted Germantown. They have a hybrid, I guess, backdoor service, and they're not experiencing any trouble as well.
Not yet.
Yeah.
We're averaging about 25 homes a day backdoor.
Okay, thank you, RJ. So let me ask you, Marshall, in your opinion, in looking at these complaints that we are receiving, are they resolved satisfactory? I think the contract requires that complaints be resolved within 24 hours.
Yeah, I would say most up until last week have been resolved satisfactorily. Last week there was such a volume of misses that there just wasn't any way to resolve it within the 24-hour time period.
Okay, and the contract also, I think in Exhibit A, requires the company to submit monthly reports to the staff on the number of complaints that they receive. So it looks like there's two types of complaints generated by the city, which these are the numbers that you're showing, I assume. And then also the complaints of people contacting the company directly. So Lori, do you have also the number of complaints that the company is receiving exclusive of the city, just the company?
To my knowledge, the items get logged into Tracky so that they're all together. So that basically there's a paper trail of what is to be handled per se.
Okay, so it's the same number, not a different number.
Correct. That way it's all the information is together so that when you're evaluating everything, it's in one place. And to speak, sorry.
So I have a question for John now, a couple of legal questions. John, are you on the line, Mr. Bradley?
Yes, I'm here.
I'd like to call your attention to the contract section 3B, and that's the penalty provision of the contract. 3B. There's been a lot of talk about that we should fine the company. So I'm just trying to get a legal opinion as to the practical applicability of that provision of the contract.
What page are you talking about? The contract I'm looking at doesn't have a 3B. It's 3.1, 3.2, 3.3.
It's on page 2. It's on the contract that the company signed.
Oh, I see. Just not the contract documents. I see what you're talking about.
Correct. And it just talks about that the city or contractor is not liable for causes of catastrophe, riot, war. So I guess what I'm trying to find out, what kind of application does that phrase, does that section have with the current situation? In other words, it's subject to be fined as a result of the misses that they have experienced over let's say over 500 the last 2 months.
Yeah, that language is similar to the language that's actually in the bid documents. That's what I was looking at on page 14. It talks about force majeure.
Yes.
And that's what you're talking about. And it says contingencies beyond a party's reasonable control, including and then it goes on, but not limited to, and it lists several things. And certainly if it was impossible to perform the contract because of the labor force being unavailable, then that would be an argument that the company could make that they should not be responsible for that. But that's an argument for the company to make, not for us to make. But you ask what it says, and that's what it says. It says, this shall not constitute a breach of this contract, but shall entitle the affected party to be relieved of performance under this contract during the term of such event and for a reasonable time thereafter.
So, all right, I'll ask the company then in just a second. I have one other question, John, for you.
Okay.
But Marshall is recommending an amendment to the contract. And that amendment, the way I understand it, would be to eliminate backdoor pickup service and require all curbside service for, I think he said, I don't know, 2 to 3, 4 months. And my question legally, what is the process that this board goes through if it wanted to act upon Marshall's recommendation? Can that be approved by Marshall or the city manager, or does that, since it's a contract, an amendment to the contract the board approved, does it need to go to the board for approval?
Yes, certainly the board would have to approve an amendment such as that.
Okay.
And I think the term was 90 days, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So three months. Okay. So now I have a couple questions for the company. So is the company exercising that provision that I just asked Mr. Bradley about, that it shouldn't be fined for the misses in garbage pickup because of COVID? What argument is the company putting forward that it should or should not be fined?
Well, the reason for the call, the reason I requested the call was really looking for a solution, and I'll answer your question, Mr. Robertson, was more about, how can we fix this going forward? I'm not wanting to quote our agreement line by line, but in some of our contracts, it actually has language in there along with that, in that same paragraph, if you will, that the word pandemic actually is used. It's not used in this contract, but with the volume increase, because when we did a request to Public Works, when we placed a bid on the contract, was the amount was landfill bills. Okay, so one way we build our routes is how many homes there are and how many tons are collected. So we're seeing upwards of 30% increase. I don't think Hendersonville is quite at 30%, but it's an extra 21,000 pounds a day. This is beyond the scope that we bid on. So again, I'm not looking, I didn't want to have a call today to where we started quoting contracts and language. It was more of how can we get this resolved with the times we're living in right now.
Well, I understand, but you understand we have to live by the contract. So
Yes.
I mean, that's the agreement that the city has with the company. And so I think our basis has to be formed on the language in the contract. But let me go forward. On June the 23rd, the public committee asked the company to come to the Public Works Committee to talk about the number of misses, the complaints that we were receiving. And evidently the company knew in June, because it was over 500, looks like over 500 complaints in June. And we met at the end of June. And the company did talk about the increase in tonnage, but there was no discussion at that time that the company was having personnel problems. Did they not occur until after that June the 23rd meeting?
We had intermittent problems prior to that, but our main staffing issues happened in the last week to 10 days. And we're trying to get those rectified. We're hoping to get those rectified, but we'll see.
So by going to curbside only, will the company be able to pick up the trash in Hendersonville if this amendment is approved by the board?
It should be much easier, yes. Because right now, you figure curbside, there's also a safety factor involved in this as well. Right now, our guys handle the trash twice. A lot of times they'll roll a cart down the driveway. They pick up the customer's trash containers or the bags, put it into a roll cart, roll it back up to the truck, then dump it again. So we're handling it twice now. Now, I done got to the point to where I don't know what to believe on the news about that it cannot be transferred from surface or first they said it could, then they said it couldn't. So I don't know what to believe there. I would like to err on the side of caution there. If our guys could only have to handle it one time instead of 2 times. Secondly, they can service a customer at the curb probably in about 30, 45 seconds. Depending on the driveway time factor, you're probably looking anywhere from, 2 minutes to probably 4.5 minutes, depending on the length of the driveway. So time factor, the time involved in servicing a route should be less. So if there is issues, we're able to pull our other guys together to assist on the route. It also allows time to make additional landfill trips if needed.
So RJ, let me ask you a question. When you're fully staffed, what's the number of workforce that you have to service Hendersonville when you're fully staffed?
We have 10 drivers and 10 helpers, plus a swing driver.
So about 20 employees to handle the garbage service in Hendersonville. And
Right.
How many employees do you currently have capable of work?
We're short on our helpers. We're going through temporary services, so we're able to get that staffed fairly much easier than a driver. I believe today with the people that we've got out, not counting management, I think we're out 3 today.
Okay, so you've got 17. So how many trucks do you have running when you're at full force?
We have 10 trucks.
And are they all running?
They're all able to run. No issues. The majority of the fleet is pretty much brand new.
Well, I don't mean for service. I mean employees, drivers and stuff. Are all 10 trucks being running?
No, sir. I believe we're too short right now. We've got to get guys pitched in to try to get everything else caught up today.
So has the company explored the possibility of hiring a subcontractor to help you out in this time? I know the contract allows you to do that. Has the company explored that as a possibility to pick up these? I mean, I've heard complaints like in Mansker Farms that they've waited for several days. So have you looked at the possibility of hiring a subcontractor to help you out in situations?
We have not in the Nashville, Hendersonville market area. I don't know of any other company that would have these spare trucks and the staff to do that. Now there are companies out there, we call them storm chasers, that have the boom trucks, the clamshell trucks, those type that can assist, but household garbage, really not companies out there that we can hire to do that I'm aware of. But I can make a couple of phone calls with a couple of our competitors in the area up there.
Have you had to do this in Germantown?
No, sir.
So has COVID not affected you as much in Germantown as it is in Hendersonville?
Yes, it has, but I'm running about 70 routes out of this location, and I've got more access to pitch in if where needed.
Okay, let me interject something right now. Alderman Woodcock is trying to get back in. Can someone on the city side allow him back in, please?
Sorry, sir. It looks like he's already connected at the bottom. So
Okay. I don't have him there, but that's good. I was just noticing the
He said he's
message.
back
you
in.
sent out. Thank you. Okay, continue on.
I have one last question, RJ. At the present time, how many customers, what's the number of customers that have not, their trash has not been picked up? That over 24 hours.
I don't have that number in front of me, sir. I can find out by shortly after we get off the call.
Yeah, if you could provide that number to Marshall, I would appreciate, just
Okay.
so we can keep a running total of how many, over 24 hours, how many citizens are waiting for their garbage to pick up.
Okay.
Again, I want to, and I'm closing, thank you for indulging me, Mr. Chairman. But thanks to the company for their employees. I know these are hard times, but we're just trying to get to the bottom of it. Part of it is finding a solution, but part of it is also trying to understand and to see, to ensure accountability.
Well, I've got 9 other companies, hauling companies like I have in Nashville. I've got some about the same size, and I have some that are medium size, and I've got some that are rather large. Right now, I've got 9 managers running routes, from supervisors to operations manager to division manager that are running routes. My regional safety manager, I've got him in Nashville. I know he's been on a route. So we're utilizing anyone with a CDL we possibly can have to try to get all of our customer service.
Well, not only do you have managers running garbage routes, but we've got a few aldermen that are actually out there running garbage routes too. We're all trying to pitch in to find a solution. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
sir.
thank you, Alderman Roberson. Alderman Campbell, you're right there ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Eddie, for those questions. And also, so how many, Marshall, how many houses are we picking, do we have in our service area now? I know it was 18,500.
Yeah, we're quickly approaching 19,000
19,000.
residential units.
All right. Well, I was just using 18,500 as my number for figuring out stuff. And you said that would equate to 79,500 routes in a month at 4.3 days a month. You know, weeks in a month, 4.3 weeks in a month. Be 79,500 houses to run. That would be 795 for misses at 1%. And at 1%, that graph showed 500 houses being missed for June in the month. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then July right now we're at 500. Now today I know that number's out the window because we've had a catastrophe this week, and I know we have entire neighborhoods that have not been serviced, entire roads that have not been serviced for the entire week. While I'm sitting here right now, I'm having people saying they're watching the meeting and sending me Zoom, sending me text messages saying, "Hey, we're on Cherokee Road. We have not been serviced this week," and other areas, Berrywood Court, and a few others. And I've just let those fine folks know that, hey, I'm going to get with Lori Kate in a moment and tell her all about this so we can get out there and pick them up. One of the things I've been talking to y'all about though at Waste Pro, we get some pickup trucks with bumper carts in the back where you don't really have to have a CDL to drive a pickup truck and go down and service like Saunders Ferry Road. That is a tough street to service from a garbage truck standpoint, to stop right there in the middle of Saunders Ferry and then walk the length of some of those driveways because they're extremely long. And the safety factor of just stopping traffic in the morning or in the afternoon on Saunders. I'm using Saunders Ferry as my road of choice at the moment because it's right here next to me. And I'm just curious. I mean, the other company, they used to have tip cart trucks where they would pull up in the neighborhood and go to the harder areas to service, and then they would come over here, meet the garbage truck in front of my house, and tip that truck over and dump it right there on the spot and move on to the next route. I've mentioned it numerous times, and I think that would be something that would help. I know you have 10 trucks, 10 drivers, 10 helpers. You might want to throw in a few extra helpers on this backdoor route stuff because it is 100 degrees outside, heat index of 105, 110 degrees. And I can't imagine trying to service 400 houses running up and down a driveway, toting a garbage container. I'm not going to be there very long. We all know how it is to have a heat stroke. Well, same goes for your employees. They're going to have a heat stroke. They just can't, it's impossible. So number of employees, got to work on increasing that. Serviceability, getting a truck in there to help. I think pickup trucks, people believe that would help you out a lot on servicing these hard to get to roads. Cherokee Road, Indian Lake, East Drive, Walton Ferry, Curtis Crossroads, Saunders Ferry, and I'm sure Center Point Road would be one as well. New Shackle Island, Old Shackle Island, probably even Saundersville Road, not knowing that road particularly. But I just think some pickup trucks, one or two, wouldn't take a lot of them to help send out that load there, because I have some repetitive people that call me every week saying, hey, they missed me again, they missed me again, they missed me again. And it's certain streets that it seems like over just a continuous miss. This week is totally turned into something else. The only reason why I provided those numbers on the number of houses we have and the number of pickups in a month and the percentages, because everybody wants to say it's not as good as it used to be. We changed our contract and take out certain things. I think that's part of our problem with our constituents, is they think that anything they put out there should be picked up. And I know that I've had constituents tell me this, and that are still thinking that demolition material, as long as they cut it up, put it in a black garbage bag and set it out by the road for easy pickup, it ought to be carried off. It's not how this contract works. Just like picking up yard waste, putting an old flower pot, say a 5-gallon flower pot that might have had a small tree in it or something like that. I had one person say the top of the tree was sticking up out of the bag, but they put the whole flower container in the bag, set it out by the street. I said, well, you really need to dump out the contents of that bag and bust the soil up, put it on the ground, and then throw the container in the garbage, and, you know, throw the tree in the city's limb pickup pile. But that was just a question I had last week, actually, by a constituent. And, you know, I just think we still have an educational aspect from our old vendor to our new vendor, even though it's been a year now. There are things that we pick up, things that we do not pick up, and servicing issues such as this. But we also have to get back to picking up the trash once a week, back door at the moment, period. We want to vote on, as BOMA, if we want to go to BOMA with curbside service for the next 90 days, that's fine. But I'm going to just say right now, it's going to cause some issues, because the majority of the people are not going to know that. They're going to have no clue that now we have a contract saying, let's take it to the street to help streamline the service. That's going to be a big issue in and of itself. So best thing to do is get some employees back to work. Maybe throw another truck or two in the mix, help lighten the load on those trucks, and throw a couple of pickup trucks in there as well. That's my opinion, sir. Thank you, Chairman. More.
I can speak to the employees that you were talking about for the extra employees, and due to the heat, we certainly, when Roland said that we have 10 drivers and 10 helpers, yes, we do say full staff, but we, due to the conditions, the extra volume, the 107 heat index that we've had various days, yes, we have extra helpers on the routes in addition to what would be normal staff. So we have put that in place to assist with the collection, so that instead of just a driver and one helper, you've got a driver and two, so that they can keep cruising down the road.
And how often do you do that, if you don't mind me asking?
I know that we've had extra helpers on trucks basically since my tremendous involvement in operations in the last, since the basically Tuesday of last week. I mean, We've had extra helpers. We know that particular routes are heavier than others. So it may be that one route does not need the extra helper, can, complete it without question, no problem. But we also know others that are tremendously heavy. When you get over there off of Old Shackle, New Shackle, north of Main Street, there's a significantly heavy area there. So we know spots that need assistance in general. So we take that into consideration, daily, to make sure that we've got added helpers where we can. In addition to those pieces of equipment, we also have obviously the missed pickup truck that's out there. We're staffing it extra so that there's more people. So we have addressed that. And I think we are constantly looking at, like you're talking about, the park-hand trucks, which are the pickup trucks with the dump beds on the back. I think we are constantly working and trying to find the solution for, say, Saunders Ferry and Indian Lake and Walton Ferry, that are highly trafficked roads, but that still currently, utilize backdoor service. So I just thought I would chime in on those. And then the only thing that I wanted to mention in regard to what Mr. Robertson, one of his questions was to Marshall about the other cities. I don't think that it's necessarily the employees that are yard waste employees or recycling employees, that those are the ones that are getting it. It's just that they're reallocating their extra staff from those other lines of service over to garbage to ensure that garbage is collected. If anybody out there has extra lines of service, they're taking them off those lines of service and putting them over to make sure that at least the MSW garbage is picked up. And then the fact that it's curbside is they're able to get that done even faster. Thank you.
I do know that my neighborhood, for instance, the other day when they serviced me on Tuesday, they only had a driver and a helper. And I could tell just by looking at the driver, they had a bottle of water out, pouring it over their face at 2:00 in the afternoon. And their helper was stressed out as well, just by his physical reactions to what he was doing, job he was performing. And I just think that you really need to, during these hot summer days, increase your staffing level on that truck, as well as maybe even have another truck or two added to go from 10 to 12 garbage trucks, add drivers and helpers. And like I said, I would put pickup trucks in there, tip parts. Wouldn't be a question of are we, or maybe it would be how fast can we get them here? Because that's one of the things I just feel like from day one that has been sort of a hindrance to the service that we've been getting. But I will point out that we're still not quite at 1%. 795 using 18,500 houses in a month on picking up residential waste per number of houses. So I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a few comments to make after hearing, a lot. And then after I'm through, I'll be recognizing Scott Sprouse, because I know he's been in the queue, I guess, the longest. So Scott, just to be ready, man, because it won't take much for me. When all this, I just have a couple of questions. When all this started happening, when the aldermen started getting calls, because the committee, we get our normal calls, which we don't mind the calls because it kind of keeps us in knowing what's going on within the city as far as garbage refuse. And so when we started getting the calls, have you already notified the city that you all were going to be missing subdivisions or homes at this past week?
I think I can speak to that. I mean, basically, I think your numbers that we discussed at the previous meeting was June, and that we had seen a slight increase. I think those numbers are a little bit elevated, and I think we had some periodic cases like Roland was discussing, a little bit more spread out. The numbers were up and elevated, not where we want them by any means.
Right.
I just want to reflect back a little bit, not to compare too much, because all we're really concerned with is the here and now. Right. But you had a previous hauler that was leaving 300, 400 a day on the ground. So when we're looking at 400 a month, I would hope that would be put in perspective, so.
Well,
but as far as indicating the month of July, I mean, we stay in constant communication with Marshall and with Public Works. And if we have issues, if we've got things that are on the ground, or if we've had any situations like that arise. So I feel like through the curveballs of the pandemic and everything, I feel like we've done a good job communicating with staff. And if we have failed there, Marshall, please feel free to say so. But I think we've done a fairly decent job of communicating of what we were experiencing out there.
Well, I will say this for you guys, that it's very unfortunate that we have the COVID-19. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life on this planet. I don't know what the answer is for you guys in terms with your company dealing with COVID. I know there's some companies that just dealt with it, and how they dealt with it was real simple. They just shut down. But you're in a position that you obviously are wanting to make money, and you're doing that. And I appreciate that, because, you know, when somebody gets sick, there's not much. I mean, actually, I was going to say there's not much you can do about it, but there's really nothing you can do. You know, at least in my belief about the COVID. So I want to tell you that I appreciate y'all trying to work through that, because, you know, millions of Americans that are elected officials as well as trash haulers are trying to deal with the same thing. So we want you to know that we're dealing with it too. So, but the thing that bothers me the most about this is the fact that you're still missing the same people that you have been missing months before. We literally, in Ward 1, we have people that are quite frankly in wheelchairs, and the employees are saying, well, you have to bring it up to the front of the yard, and they are in a wheelchair. That's unacceptable, and they're senior citizens, and that is unacceptable. As a chairman of Public Works, I don't know if any chairman would deem that necessary or acceptable. But and then there, you know, we've had some people that have missed from y'all's company like 6 or 7 weeks in a row, just one house. And I went over there and looked at to see where Chandru was placing the garbage, and I mean, I didn't see any problem with it. So I would encourage your employees to really take the time, whatever we do today, to make sure that those people that are consistently missed on a consistent basis, because believe it or not, in the city of Hendersonville, we take trash seriously. And our constituents take trash seriously as well. So I would encourage them to take I know it's hard work, trust me. That's where I was this weekend. I have the utmost respect for trash haulers, trust me. As of this weekend, I can guarantee you I have the utmost respect for them. We were out, we probably didn't work as much as hard as those guys do, but we tried to get some of the trash out, even the ones where they had been missing those homes. So I would encourage that you do that you would, I don't know if, and be sure to, if they do take the garbage can to the truck, make sure they take it back to because I've got pictures of where they didn't take them back. So just try to encourage them to do the right thing and what the contract says. I'm not here to dispute the contract at all by any means. I just want trash picked up in Hendersonville. And I think every alderman on this Zoom here, and the ones that are not here, that weren't able to make it today, they want the same thing. They just want you to abide by the contract and pick up the garbage. And they don't want to hear their phone ringing saying they missed my house again. So I would ask you all to please take that in consideration when you're going through. At this point, Scott, are you ready to?
I am, Mark. I don't want to step on any toes, though. I see the mayor is signed in.
Is he? I don't see him. Mayor, are you here? Thank you, Scott.
His camera's off and he's muted. He's signed in.
I'm right here. Let me see if I can get the camera on.
Cool. I don't want to step on.
Mayor, I'm sorry about that. I didn't see you in the.
You're fine, Mark. I'll listen for right now, but I do want to weigh in a little bit. I'm still sort of looking up a couple things as well.
Okay, that's fine. I'll come back to you.
Cool.
And I'm gonna turn you off because most of my attention is over here where the contract is and where the agenda is. So
All right.
I'm still with us, or with everybody.
All right. Thank you. Scott, I guess that
Yeah.
opens you up.
And folks, I just want to say I appreciate your responsiveness that y'all have had over the past few months. It is a difficult conversation, but I don't want it to be a mean conversation, because at the end of the day, we are all representing citizens of Hendersonville, and we have to make sure as their advocates they're getting the services for which they're paying. And if they're not getting those services, we have to figure out what the remedy is. Whether it's a change of provider, it's a change of cost, however we have to do this. One of the things that concerns me is, and I've read through the contract, I don't see there being any mention about a maximum volume in there. So I'm a little concerned. I can imagine completely why volume is up. I will tell you, in the middle of March, when we started eating in more, when we had kids come home from school, our volume immediately went up. It basically at least doubled what we're doing in our house. But I think that is a reasonable expectation that could be handled. Don't see, I understand that we have two concerns with both crews being ill and the increase in the volume, but I don't see the increase. I would have a hard time understanding, you may have data otherwise, but I would have a hard time understanding why the volume didn't go up, why that increase didn't happen during the stay-at-home order, didn't happen when restaurants and stores were absolutely shut down, and people were staying home and doing more at home. So I would think that we're really looking the volume issue and this issue is two different things, that hopefully we would have made adjustments by now to increase waste being generated by people being at home doing that. Looking at the phrase and the clauses, when things that would allow y'all to not y'all be excused from the service requirements. Yes, you're right. It does not say pandemic or anything like that. I'm not an attorney, so I will not pretend to be the attorney, but as a layman, when I read these things, most of the things that are in there, with the exception of strike, which of course any company that's having to experience a strike should be excused from that, respecting the rights of labor. But most of those things have to deal with disasters that either would impact your equipment or your access to our residents, whether it's fires or storms or floods or things like that. Very clearly, if trees are blocking a road, you're not going to be able to reach the road and the residents. Same thing with the floods. And then the cleanup that follows up after that. We've seen in the 2010 flood, and we've seen when storms come through, that there's additional waste. And we understand that that's going to create a huge burden upon any collection system. But what we're seeing right now is a phrase I keep hearing. It doesn't matter what the service is. It doesn't matter if it's a company. It doesn't matter if it's a government. It doesn't matter if it's public safety or public works or education. What the pandemic is exposing, it's not creating deficiencies as much as it is exposing deficiencies. And we've had a discussion about it. We've been affected more than Germantown because there's fewer routes, fewer drivers, fewer resources in our immediate market. That was just something that this board discussed last year. You know, I don't want to go and retry all of that decision, but that was a concern expressed last year, is what happens when you have folks with limited abilities in the market who are new in the market. I appreciate Mr. Campbell and him talking about education, because there are still people who don't understand that we lost yard waste with the municipal waste contract. I mean, we're months, I guess we're over a year into this. And there are people who still don't understand that it's twice a week, that it's no longer twice a week, that you still can't put yard waste. They're calling with questions, you know, up until a few months ago, not the majority, but you know, a healthy share of the complaints I would receive, I would do a little bit of triage. Is it in the right place? Is it the right level type of can? But all of those are changes that have taken place that a year into it we're doing. The yard waste was an absolute screw up decision. Absolutely screw up. And Waste Pro, that's not on you. But the way the city reacted to that was, all of a sudden, we don't have this. Well, how are we going to do it? And it seemed like every week, if not every day, our reaction changed to it. How are we going to respond? Was the city going to pick up? When were we going to pick up? Do they call in? Do they run regular routes? What type of bags? I have the question right now from a resident who came in last night. The city's not providing the paper bags anymore for yard waste, and no local store has them. So what are they supposed to do? I'm afraid that if we just continue kicking the can down and changing to a different type of service, we could be 3 months into it and half the people still not know it's curbside. And then we switch back to backdoor just as they start doing curbside. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because in the last year, we have lost yard waste. We have lost twice a week backdoor pickup. We have lost a consistency of service. And we can't afford to send out enough letters or television commercials or social media advertising to keep people up if we're making decisions on a month-to-month, even a 90-day by 90-day basis. I'm open to solutions, but I will tell you, the only way that I can support a temporary, highly temporary change to anything other than the service contracted to receive and the residents are paying is if the price concession is considerably more than just the reduction in price. We know what the price is for once a week curbside pickup. That number was bid last year. And at any time I'm dealing with a service provider or retailer or any type of business, and they force me to take a solution that I did not choose, it's not going to be at the set price. It's going to be at 75, 80% of the set price. And that's what I'm looking at, because if we wanted once a week curbside pickup at the price that was bid, we may have gone with a different provider, or we would have picked it when we voted on this last year. So that number has to be considerably less. That's the only way I can possibly consider it. We need to come up with a confirmed, easy to understand, easy to communicate plan right now to give us something long-term. If not, we may just have to take the quick Band-Aid pull off. It would be painful, but we may have just to do an overall change. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sprouse. The next I have is, I believe it's Steve Brown. Steve, do you have anything, or are you may not be ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, sir.
Scott, well said. Just so you'll know, I've jotted down about 3 notes here while we've been talking, but COVID is killing us. I understand that. It's changed the way everybody's doing everything right now, but we're still surviving. Roland, I believe you said that you were down 3 employees right now in Hendersonville. Unmute yourself. Can't hear you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks. Lord Kate, you said that you had extra helpers out on trucks. So how do we be down 3 people and have extra helpers? You don't have to answer that right now, but that math doesn't work for me from where I went to school.
Yes, sir, it does, because we're putting on the other trucks, we're having 2 helpers. So if I'm short a driver, we're putting extra helpers on the other trucks. to help assist with the routes.
Okay, I don't understand the schematics on that, but
Okay.
when you're short people, but you got extra helpers, then I would move somebody on this side, and make my numbers work, but that's the way I would do it.
Yeah, the helpers don't have driver's license, so they can't drive.
Okay. Curbside. That would be your suggestion to help you all, where folks didn't have to go to the back door and run them down driveways, wouldn't have to handle it 2 times, as you say, or whatever. I find that pretty hard to swallow right now, simply for the fact that many of the phone calls that I've received from Indian Lake Peninsula have been curbside, and your guys will walk right by them. The ones I talked to you about last week, Lori Kate, were already curbside, and they walk right by them.
I did have some issues with the last week because we had.
You've had those issues for a while, not just last week. Last week was a bad week. I'll give you all that. It was a bad week throughout the city. But I believe you got another alderman on here that has some ring footage if you want to see it. Your guys going right by trash cans. I watched 2 drivers on Lake Terrace this morning, or your driver and your helper. I wasn't watching them intentionally. I was leaving the peninsula. And I will say that they have never missed me. I take my stuff curbside. They've never missed me. Never argued with me about anything. And I put some stuff out there that I've tried to follow the rules. But this morning, I come to that truck and I had to stop because you had one guy on this side of the street and one behind the truck. And the one behind the truck was leaning over and picking up trash that didn't get in the truck. The other guy crossed the street and hopped on the back of the truck, and they took off, and guess what was still laying in the middle of the street? Yep, trash. I've seen that a lot. If you want to see the pictures, I'll get you the pictures. And I told you last week that I think I've been fairly patient. I've tried to communicate with Richard or you. We talked about duplication of counts. I've sent a lot of text before about, hey, so-and-so was missed at 158 Glen Hill. I've never reported that to Public Works just because I didn't have time. It was just easier for me just to try to get the trash emptied. So granted, COVID has changed the way everybody does everything, but curbside, no, I can't do that. Just creating another mess. I won't be part of that. So duplications, I realize there's duplications. One guy I called you about on Indian Lake last week called 3 times. A part of that's because he never got a response from anybody. And, maybe that needs to be dealt with in Marshall's department, but he never got a response from anybody. They never got his trash emptied. So my biggest thing is curbside. I do curbside and I'm okay with that. But I'm not going to ask folks on the Indian Lake Peninsula to start doing curbside when they're already screaming about not having 2 times a week and haven't settled down on that yet. Because you're not going to get them to do curbside. Their trash just won't get empty. But I've seen, and I can give you more than one witness, where it's been sitting curbside and you guys will walk right by. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Alderman Bolt. Bolt.
I'm here.
Bolt, there you go.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
As a follow-up to Pat's comment, Alderman Campbell's comment earlier on the number of misses, I was doing that math too. And so on average, the misses are less than 1% up until just recently. Based on the contract and based on, I think I saw in fact, I have a copy of the letter that Marshall sent out on May 24th to Waste Pro, reiterating our relationship and that the misses weren't significant or out of the ordinary compared to, I think, Republic or something along those lines previously. I guess my question for Marshall and or John Bradley, up until recently, maybe even into June, was there opportunity to find the company, or is that just not the case?
I would say that the number of misses, once you filter through and find what a true miss was, the levels were so low, it wasn't, it wasn't, it didn't meet the threshold to warrant fines. Now, obviously, like June, July, it's a different story, but certainly, like leading up to that, though, those levels never reached the threshold to warrant warrant fines.
Okay. And then a follow-up question, well, I mean, that's what I understood, and the continued rhetoric of finding the company, at least up until recently, has just been rhetoric. It doesn't help those people that have actually been missed. And to, I think Steve's point, I've had citizens that have been missed multiple times. I don't know. I'm not sure why, really, why those particular houses continue to get missed, but they continue to get missed. Nobody's actually been able to answer this question I've asked in the past, but what percentage of citizens are getting backdoor service now? I mean, what percentage of them, like in my neighborhood, Voluntary, I think it's pretty few. I've always taken mine to the curb. Do you have a feel for, and this is for Waste Pro, Lori or Raymond, what percentage of people are actually, doing the backdoor service?
I think if you do an initial drive-by through the city and you are looking at the items at the curb, I think it would skew your perception of what percentage is curbside versus what percentage is backdoor, because some people utilize both. As far as what percentage is actually backdoor, I'll have to get that. I'm not out there on the streets daily enough to get that, and I apologize. I can find that out very quickly, and if I get that information before the end of this, then I can come back on and say that. I mean, if I had to just guess, I'm saying I'd say you've at least got 40%.
Okay.
It's backdoor, and it's in certain areas. Certain areas are more dense with backdoor than others.
Yeah, I've not ever gotten a number, and that's a fairly high number. And I guess I'd feel very similarly to Steve Brown and actually also Scott Sprouse. I can't support it going to curbside. I'm not sure that means anything, because if that's all you can do, that's all you can do. But I have a lot of people back in Ward 4 that are getting backdoor service. And I guess my question too would be, I mean, how in the world, and I missed the first couple of minutes of Marshall's statement, but how in the world would we communicate, and to Pat's point, how would we communicate to those people that require backdoor service, those that are not able physically by age or disability or something else to be able to take it to the curbside? How in the world would we get that out in any kind of a timely fashion? Does anybody want to tackle that? I mean, it'd have to be a mailer at the very minimum. So, 18,000 mail. I don't know. Help me understand how that would work.
19,000 letters now.
Yeah. I think, the initial reason I wanted to get everyone together to see if it was a possibility. There would be, if it was a possibility, definitely there would be a lot of hurdles that would, we would have to cross to even make this feasible. So, obviously the ones that are medically handicapped, if you will, we would have to figure out how to get those people captured, for the backdoor piece of it. So be a lot of work to do. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I just can't imagine how that could possibly work. As Alderman Sprouse said, kind of bouncing back between things, people still not, extremely familiar with things. I mean, we all thought that when the bids went out, that you guys were still going to be, whoever got that was going to be picking up yard waste. We only found out later on that. And then that's also been a moving target at various times as to how that would actually work, limbs pick up along with that. So I think that'd be really difficult. I'd encourage you guys, and I know you're between a rock and a hard place, but to look at other options that are not that. I just don't see how that would possibly work, and it'll create more difficulty for you from a publicity standpoint, among other things, if we try to accomplish that. So I think that's all I have right now. I appreciate you listening to me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Boat. Now, I have in the queue, I have, excuse me, not coronavirus, just golf. I'm sorry. I have Peg Petrelli and Arlene Cunningham. So before our two strong aldermen from the board speak, Dave Lamar's been sitting up there. Also, we have the mayor, but I figured he probably wanted to go last. So I haven't called on him, but we've also forgot about Dave Lamar, and there's the mayor there. So is that okay with you ladies, that Dave goes first, then Peg, and then Arlene? Is that okay?
I don't have much to say. I just wanted to say something simple.
I think, and Mr. Chairman, I'd rather they go first, let all the aldermen speak, and then we can kind of come in toward the end. That'd be fine with me.
Brainstorm, okay. Alderman Petrelli, then you're up.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
So my talking points are on curbside also. What my concern is, as other folks have mentioned, is that Ward 1 is very dynamic in that it's mid-century ranch homes and HOAs. In the HOAs, the driveways obviously are much shorter, stereotypically. Our driveway, because I asked my dear husband to measure it, is 125 feet from the street to the cans, and we're probably on this degree slope. If the decision is made by the Public Works Committee and the Public Works Department to go curbside, I ask that you not spend copious amounts of time, money, energy identifying who's not going to be required to be curbside, because that's a ludicrous waste of time. I'm not a proponent of curbside. We have driveways that are longer than my driveway. We've got one gentleman who just messaged me saying, I'm watching the meeting and I'm concerned that I'm going to have to put my garbage at the street, and he's probably got a half-a-mile long driveway. If folks want to willingly put their garbage at the street, fine. But where there is no garbage at the street, I would recommend that the company go to the cans and do the backdoor pickup so that there's nobody missed, that there's no confusion. It's not at the street, go to the back door. But in Ward 1, again, besides for the HOAs, I do not see how that will be successful. I think that will actually add to confusion, asking for it to go curbside. And I'm concerned that a majority of the citizens over here cannot do curbside. Thank you.
I agree with you, Peg. Arlene, and be sure to unmute you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for having this meeting today. I think the main purpose of the meeting is to find a solution. How are we going to solve this issue? Now, several things were mentioned to go from backdoor to curbside, which I also would not support. I think it would also lead to more confusion, and the people of the city are so upset now. I think that would just add more fuel to the fire. So, what recommendations this committee comes up with are going to be extremely important moving forward. I know that we discussed the possibility of hiring a third party to help in the interim, maybe for 90 days until we get this all straightened out. And I'm going to pose this question first to the company and then to our city attorney to see if that would be a possibility. And if we incur the cost as a city, can we be reimbursed by the company for those costs? Mr. Joyner, could you respond to that?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
All right.
Okay.
To answer if the short version of that, the answer is going to be no.
Okay, would the company consider hiring a third party for the short term to clean up this monumental disaster that we have right now in Hendersonville?
I will try to find someone that's able to do that, to do this possibly for a short term on this piece of it. Yes.
I mean, I understand with the lack of personnel, because you're a very service-driven industry. Yeah, I come from a very service-driven industry by a small company called FedEx. And we measure our service hourly, daily, hourly. And when we measure our service and it doesn't come up to our customers, didn't come up to our customers' expectation, we had to do whatever it takes for it to come up to our customers' expectations. We rented vans, we got temporary people to work. If we had to, we did employ third parties to do it, especially during, our peak season, during the Christmas season. So I'm thinking that with your reputation in Waste Pro, that you would be willing to do the same thing to satisfy your customers, 19,000 of them in the city of Hendersonville. So that's what I'm proposing. I don't know if the committee would go along with that or not, but we're here to find solutions, not to try to do the blame game. And how are we going to come to that solution? If we have to do it in the short term, let's do it in the short term, just whatever it takes. So that would be my suggestion.
Can I make an alternate suggestion through
Sure.
this? Going to curbside temporarily is not something we want to do, because there's going to be confusion. There's no doubt. Most of the people in Hendersonville, not most, a large percentage still thinks that is twice a week, like we've talked about. There's a percentage that thinks we picked up that our contract is yard waste. That's not part of it. So confusing residents or confusing customers is not something we want to do by any means.
Correct.
I'll save this, what I was going to say next. And again, I greatly appreciate you saying, Ms. Cunningham, that it's not a blame game. That wasn't the reason I wanted to get everybody together. It was try to come up with a solution to help us during this whole episode that's going on in the world right now. I think every business has felt something from even shutting down. We're not looking to shut down by no means. We're just up against the wall right now, and we're looking for some suggestions. And I'll go ahead and say what I was going to say till the end. But did I think we were going to go to curbside after this meeting? No, sir. No, ma'am. I didn't. But could the city advertise during these pandemic times with the residents voluntarily take it to the curb? And that may be what we end up with.
That may be a compromise.
Right. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And I think if we just all focus on putting the citizens and the residences of Hendersonville first, there are customers. There are collective customers. They're paying for a service and they expect that service. They're not looking at people pointing fingers at other people and blaming people. They don't care. They want to get what they pay for. And I think if we all collectively come up with that solution, even if it's a short-term solution and then figure out the rest later, let's go for it. But and that may be a good thing that we make a suggestion like that, but not discontinue the back door, because if we could discontinue back door, we're going to have World War III on our hands here in Hendersonville. Never mind a pandemic. But You know, that's just the mindset of citizens. And, you know, I think that they're going to make some, you know, allowances for the pandemic, just go so far. And then they're going to want to see some results. And that's my 2 cents. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey,
Thank
Chairman
you, Fran.
Skidmore.
Yes.
I'm going to have to switch over to phone here in just a minute and get off my computer. Could I say something very quickly?
Okay, sir.
Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate a lot of what's been said here, and I have a hard time with the proposal as well. I don't think it addresses, and I don't think it will work. 15 months ago, 16 months ago, Waste Pro came in and they helped us when we were having a hard time with our previous trash company. They helped us. We withheld money from the previous company and we paid Waste Pro. I think that's a good temporary solution that we should use again. We should bring in a temporary company to pick up the misses, and we should pay them based on the money that we save through the terms of the contract by not paying for missed houses. I think some people have sort of alluded that. Certainly, some people have said they're not willing to go to curbside. I agree with that. I think that's a bad move. But we have a situation from just over a year ago that helped and was successful. And I think we should go with that again. Waste Pro is a beneficiary of that when we did it before. It just so happens that they're on they have the contract now, so it'll be a little bit different. So thank you, Chairman Skidmore.
All right, thank you. All right, Dave, are you ready? Are you ready, bud?
Yeah, I've just got a couple of things. One of the things that I just wonder how the yard, I guess going back, well, that's probably not a story or a question for today, was how the yard waste got left out of the contract. But that seems to be kind of a sidebar here. Yeah, we got to quit pointing fingers. We got to quit doing the blame game. I know a couple of aldermen have alluded to that. This position wasn't here until December the 10th. So blaming the interim city administrator for misses and blaming it for the contract, things like that, it's hard to swallow. So I'm gonna have to just pass on that part of the theory that it seems to be my fault that the trash not getting picked up. So the other thing is, when we call Waste Pro to help out last year or the year before, whenever we call them to help out, we didn't even have a pandemic then. But now we got a pandemic and we're trying to call people in. A little different situation. So the other company that was doing such a great job, when we had to call them in and Waste Pro had to help them, wasn't even the situation that we're in now. So I just have a lot of questions and things that were happened to get to this point. Again, we need to find solutions so that people's trash gets picked up and complaints can get curtailed so that people again can get the trash picked up and we can move on. So I'm gonna leave it at that, Mr. Chairman, and I'm gonna have comments toward the end. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderman Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marshall, I think you can answer the question on the yard waste, how that was removed from the contract originally. My thoughts are it was designed to help reduce the total amount of tipping fee, if you will, when we go to the transfer station. We kept the yard waste in Hendersonville at our own facility, our mulching facility, and kept it in-house. We would save that $45 a ton. But now we're in a position where that's sort of a moot point. So it'd be nice to just put that yard waste in that bag, let them pick it up and handle it for us. If you'd like to expound on that, please do. And I might have another question here in just a moment. Go ahead, sir.
Right. Well over a year ago, during the bid process for the current contract, we had a question raised to us about yard waste by one of the vendors, and they asked specifically, well, is yard waste going to be excluded from this contract? And so then I proceeded to have discussions with the mayor, and we did an addendum, to the contract to exclude yard waste. Obviously, we'd picked it up for decades, just as a part of the regular trash route. You could include grass clippings, weeds, whatever you wanted to put in there, you could, and it would be collected. And so we decided to to divert that waste stream into our mulch, facility over off of Free Hill, and reduce the amount of disposal that was collected. And also too, that it was hard, during the bid process, it is very hard to quantify yard waste. And then, for the vendors, obviously that's a little bit of an unknown quantity. I mean, you don't know how much yard waste is going to be produced by a city. Of course, you can estimate, but there's really no way to quantify what that number is. And when you can't quantify something, your prices are going to be higher to compensate for that. And so, the price that we received for once a week backdoor collection and removing yard waste was really the best price we could possibly get, for trash collection. Now, I understand there's a lot of people mad about that, but that's kind of the behind the scenes kind of what happened.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And who helped come up with removing that yard waste? Didn't the mayor sit down with you and
I'm sorry, I might have left that out. We've, obviously the question was raised. I went to talk to the mayor about it, explained the same thing I just explained to this meeting, and then that's when I issued the addendum after that
contract. Okay. What I'm trying to clarify is the path from the beginning, because we're talking about Waste Pro helping out with Republic. When Republic lost the contract, they sort of fell off the map when it came for the last 2 months of their service, and we had to ask them to step in to pick it up to help out with facilitating our waste collections back then.
Right. And the months, and really, I mean, the months leading up to that, the number of misses increased, and obviously the last towards the end of the contract, they went through the roof, and we had to explore that option. And Dave's right, there wasn't any, there was no pandemic or any other reason. It just couldn't do it.
Yes, sir. And but I just want to make sure that at the beginning, the mayor was involved in the process with this contract, because my specific words to Mr. Robertson when he brought up bidding out this contract back then was the mayor working with staff was able to perform rebidding a contract. And I said, because of that fact right there, I will be glad to second his motion, rebidding the contract forward. When Alderman Skidmore, Chairman Skidmore, said he didn't want to rebid it, he wanted to keep it where it was at, and we had a conversation at that point about that. And his hindsight is 2020. Sometimes in this, maybe we did need to have a whole year to work it out and get it worked out. But in closing, I would like to say, though, to Waste Pro, I understand it's tough, guys. We got 19,000 houses here in Hendrixville to service now. If you leave it on 10 trucks per route per week, that's 300 houses. 380 houses per day per truck. If you were to add 2 trucks to that and the helpers to go along with that, it would drop that number down to 317 houses per day for them. And I would like to really see you consider that, and also add a couple of pickup trucks to help pick up those rough areas that we've talked about for over a month now. Because hey, I want you to be doing a good job for our citizens, because I know you can do it, and I realize it's tough times with the COVID virus thing, but as soon as all this stuff smooths out, I would really like to see you reconsider using pickup trucks or tippers, and maybe even add, like I said, instead of going 10 routes, going 12 routes, and increasing the number of trucks on the road. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Campbell. We had one person that has not spoken once, and that would be Alderman Hayes. Jonathan, are you still in?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Thank you. You're recognized.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir, rather.
I was at that Public Works Committee meeting when this came up and it was discussed. And I've even gone back and listened to the tape again. And our chairman said 3 times, this is not a good idea to change contracts. So going into that first vote, that meeting on the 24th of April, 6 of us voted against making this change. And at that time, I gave the reasons. And what concerns me the most is not that it got turned around on the next vote, but that by the time it was voted on, there was an addendum that was not made privy to the alderman. We did not know about this, but that addendum, as you just talked about, excluded yard waste, and it also changed the container size. So the reason I'm mentioning this, those are the two most common complaints that I've gotten in the past year. I take pride in getting back to my constituents very quickly, especially on trash, because as of once a week, it's imperative that they get that picked up once a week.
Hey, Chairman Skidmore, can I jump in real quick?
I don't want to be interrupted.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were finished. Sorry.
We'll recognize you, Nick. Go ahead, John.
So, Mr. Chairman, the reason I'm bringing this up is that this has put this contractor in a position where now, oftentimes, at the street curb, they are asked to go through a plastic bag to make sure it's not yard waste. They've been asked, don't pick up yard waste. And yet, when we run out of the paper bags and they're in a position of going through that garbage, it puts them in a very awkward situation. And I don't think that's right. The other thing is, a number of the misses are being counted because they are told clearly in their contract not to pick up the 43 and the 96 gallon and larger containers at the back door. So those crews are being told don't pick those up. So a lot of times they do pick them up. They just try to get by it. But all I'm saying is that addendum change has caused more of my time, follow up with constituents, and it's still very confusing because the original mail out specifically said 43 to 44 inches height. It didn't mention gallons. So you've got some constituents out there that are angry from the get-go. They're sometimes getting their cans missed because the addendum says if it's 96 gallons or more, they're not to be picked up back door. So the communication issue that you just mentioned, Alderman Campbell, is so extremely important. I can't possibly support going to curbside. I appreciate that Waste Pro is very responsive when I call them. They try to get there as soon as they can. But I had constituents telling me I do not want to bring it to the curb. So that was the reason I never supported this change in the contract. We had a really great system. And so I just think that addendum had a lot to do with it. And there was a lot of lobbying going on between the April 24th vote and the vote that approved this contract. A lot of lobbying. Thank you.
Well, it wasn't an addendum. The item that that required the larger trash cans to not be picked up at back door, that was not the addendum. It did not come before the vote. That came as part of the frequently asked questions after the vote. And it's something that we can change now. And I'd certainly be in favor of changing that and requiring that Waste Pro pick up the 96 gallon containers that are below the height limit that they were required to pick up at the back door. That was not something that was decided before the vote. It was decided after it, and we can make that change, and I think we should make that change.
All right, thank you both. Now we're on the second round, and Alderman Brown, are you ready? There you go. You ready, Alderman Brown?
I'm ready. I think may pontificate a little bit. I think it's pretty well established. Roland, we're not gonna actively seek curbside. Most all my neighbors take theirs to the curb anyway, so and I don't mind talking to some other folks and see if they'd be willing to do that. But I don't know if that would solve our problem. It might help it a little bit. Because we don't know when this is going to end. We don't know how many of your folks will get COVID-19. Yeah, I've lost 2 friends, got one serious shape now, and I had one of my family members come down with it. So it's out there, whether you believe it or not. I think you're probably a believer. So whether it's here another month or 5 months, or some folks say November the 4th, it'll all be over. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't care who wins presidency. So, but looking at other alternatives and trying to figure out the key thing here is getting the trash done, getting the trash picked up. I don't have the answers for that. Mr. Edwards hauled a bunch of trash for his neighbors the other day. I don't have the time and really don't want to do that. So I'm probably not going to do that. I don't think Mr. Bolt is. I don't know how he'd haul it. He doesn't have a pickup truck, but he might want to borrow mine, but I'm not going to allow him to do it. So have you talked about maybe putting roll-offs somewhere? And, you know, Pat was talking about pickup trucks with a couple guys in it. You don't need a CDL license to do that, to fill those rolls. I know you'd have to handle the stuff twice again, but maybe you could get the peninsulas or get the area done quicker. I think there's probably places all over this city that you could put some big roll-offs. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good answer. Russ just popped in there. So I don't know if that's a good answer or a bad answer to anything. I would like to say that I don't necessarily believe fining you all at this time is necessarily the right thing to do, because we had a up spike when you first started. It's been down a little bit, but the past few weeks it's come back up. If that would continue, then I certainly would be in favor of that in a minute. I mean, last year we had really good service out of Republic till they received their cancellation letter about a month before their contract actually ended from the executive office, and they kind of slowed down, which I would think that was probably a natural thing to do, although I wouldn't do that. I'd finish the job to the end, but they didn't do that. So we fined them, I think, ended up for about a month's worth of whatever work misses they had. So I think there's got to be some alternative solutions, but I want to go back and reiterate that there's been in a lot of cases that the trash guys, and I hate them call it trash guys. I don't know what the proper word is for that particular employee, but we'll use the trash guys, have walked right by, drove right by curbside that's been full and never come back to pick them up. So I don't think curbside would help. What it would do would upset some of those homeowners that are getting backdoor service that we would ask to do that. But roll-offs is a suggestion. Getting a pickup truck to even one ton truck with two drivers on it could pick up a lot of bags of trash and do a lot of running. I don't know what you can do to get through it, but I do know it's a point that we have a contract with you. You have a contract with us. You're pretty close to breaching the contract for no cause of your own, really, if COVID's doing that to you. But a contract's a contract. Somehow you've got to figure out a way to fulfill it to satisfy those homeowners out there. I don't know how that is. I mean, I'm willing, if you think a roll-off would help in a pickup truck, I'll be willing to look for, I've got a couple of ideas on Indian Lake Peninsula where we could put roll-offs. You'd have to handle them twice. So here's the other thing I would ask. Marshall, we talked about duplications. Okay. And I asked this of two things I want to ask of you. When we have someone call the front desk, or they call 822-1000, and they ask about trash, and they're transferred to Public Works, or they call the number at Public Works for trash misses that's on our website. I've talked to more than one person. I've probably talked to 50 to 100 people in the past 5 years. Republic was still on board, that never get a return call. They don't get any response that says somebody will be out to get you. We've got your call. We got your address down. We'll pass it on to the company. They'll get to you. Don't know who you got to train to do that, but somebody needs to either answer that line or they need to return a call to whoever calls in and let them know they got attention. Once they've got attention, those duplication calls will probably go down some. The one gentleman on the Indian Lake I talked about called 3 times. He got attention on his third call. And I guarantee you, Lord Kate, that was counted as a duplication. There's no doubt about it. Plus he called me and I never turned it in. So twice. So there's an issue there on our part too. We're not communicating like we should. And here's the other thing I would ask. And Lord Kate, I talked to you about this. I know I mentioned it to Dave. I know I mentioned Mr. Bolt. And I want to mention it to Marshall now. And I think this falls on Waste Pro's back. And it would help me as an alderman. I think it would probably help most everybody. If you know on a Monday morning that you're going to be down a crew or two trucks on the Indian Lake Peninsula, and you're probably not going to get everybody that day, they're just not going to get through the route, then I don't know what time your guys come in, 6-ish or so, or before that, send an email to City Hall saying, hey, Mr. Lamar, we're down 2 trucks today. Can you notify the alderman of that? We're going to have a hard time getting the whole peninsula done today. Now, that's not going to make me jump for joy in my morning coffee, but at least I will know that possibility is there. And if I get phone calls from the backside of the peninsula or wherever it is, I'll have some kind of answer other than, well, I'll check on it for you, which most constituents have heard, I'll check on it for you. They know probably nothing's going to happen. So I would ask that you all implement some kind of communication system early in the morning when you know you're going to be down a truck or 2 or down a crew. It's not a perfect answer, but it certainly would help me with information, giving it back to my constituents when they call. But that's pretty well all I wanted to say. If roll-offs are an option, if there's something else, I'll be glad to try to help figure out spots. But I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know when it'll be over. I just know we have a contractual agreement, and we want to fulfill our end of it, and we expect you to do your very best to fulfill your end of it. And I'll say in the past few months, up till just a few weeks ago, in most cases, you've done a pretty good job. But Mr. Bolt, who's gone now, I know had an appointment, will tell you, and I will tell you too, that I've had multiple complaints from the same people that they're missed, especially backdoor. So that's not solving anything. I don't know how you solve, I don't know what your procedure is to solve that. I know what my procedure would be. So with that, I'm done. I don't think I have anything else to add, period. So thanks.
Well, thank you, Alderman Brown. I noticed that Alderman Edwards, you've come into the committee. It's good to see you. Did you have anything that you would like to add into this? And then I believe that Alderman Roberson has a motion or something thereof he'd like to say or make. So Alderman Edwards, do you have anything?
I don't have anything. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. By all means, loud and clear.
I was just now able to join. I've been trying to join. I've had some bad internet coverage, so I don't know what was already covered. So I don't. Sorry, I couldn't join earlier, but no, I don't have anything to add. What I caught of Alderman Brown's statements, I agree with. He's been a little nicer than I probably would have been. So, but I don't have anything right now. I appreciate it, Alderman Skidmore.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Edwards. Would anyone else like, before I recognize Alderman Roberson, somebody had their hand up, I thought, was Peg? Okay, I thought so. I thought that was you. You didn't look like Alderman Hayes to me, so that's why I do a double take. I don't have my glasses on. Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Chairman. So when I spoke with Ms. Kate last week, we kind of went over some of their emergency plans. One of them was possibly putting dumpsters located throughout peninsulas and possibly a city hall. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just mentioning that as a point of reference. But with Ward 1, we are split on Tuesdays and Fridays. Something else that Lori and I discussed, and you all did that this weekend, is a rolling contiguous schedule, meaning that on Thursday, if folks were missed, who is Thursday? Is that Ward 3? Doesn't matter.
No, I don't think so.
If it matters, I can tell you.
Okay.
Because Monday to Thursday stuff is kind of north of the Indian Lake Peninsula, like not anything north of 386, but basically that region out to the east side of town.
Okay. So let's say on Thursday, you didn't complete that area. So then on Friday, when you start, you complete that area, whatever's left over, before you start in Ward 1, which is our regular pickup day. So to me, in my words, that's what I call a contiguous rolling schedule. You hear that a lot in management. So that's what happened this weekend. Parts of Ward 1 were picked up on Friday, and Waste Pro is very communicative about that, and I greatly appreciate that. And then on Saturday, they completed the rest of Ward 1, thus completing that week. So it went a little bit longer because times are challenging. But I know as a representative over here, what is helpful to me is that if we are going to stay with that type of a schedule for a few weeks, if Lord, Kate and Roland, if you all can let me know Friday afternoon when y'all are done for the day, which streets will still be picked up on Saturday, I can then post that on my Facebook wall, and it will reduce a lot of confusion for constituents, because it actually did last week. But I think for citizens, from what I experienced in the last 2 weeks, if the pickups remain contiguous instead of jumping all over and then having, for instance, part of Ward 1 is picked up on Tuesday. I honestly wish that the schedule was that Ward 1 was back to back, Thursday, Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, but it's not. So the folks who were missed on Tuesday did not get picked up till Friday of last week. And it's not, instead of having gaps of 3 to 4 days of missed trash, you're only having citizens miss 1 day of trash. And it's not this long drawn out ordeal, because that led to a lot of confusion in Ward 1 last week. And then when you picked up the sections of Ward 1 that are normally picked up on Tuesday, when those got picked up on Friday and Saturday, well, tomorrow's their pickup day again, and maybe they have 3 bags of garbage. Anyway, all of that to say, if the schedule is going to be adjusted in any way, please make it contiguous so that it makes sense. Citizens can, I feel, better tolerate 1 day of trash being pushed off than having to wait 3 or 4 days, because the flies are getting kind of really obnoxious at this point. The other thing is, if you all are going to consider dumpsters, we need clear information from the Public Works Committee, the protocol for that. So, but thank you guys for getting Ward 1 on Saturday, Lori.
Thank you. More than happy. I probably should have called you and alert you, but I'm telling you, man, it was hot, Peg. Believe me, we were. I'm telling you. So my apologies to you.
I understand. I picked up garbage, my son and I, last summer for a month, so I've been there.
All right, not a problem. Thank you, Peg, for your information and your comments. Eddie, do you want to make a motion? Because we're getting close to the gun here.
Well, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to all of the aldermen. There have been a lot of great suggestions. To the company, thank you for coming forward and trying to help us solve this problem. So I've got a motion, but first let me explain that this motion does not change our contract 1 iota. I think it's been real clear that this board does not want to make any changes in the contract. So here we go. First of all, I would like to make a motion that we begin a program of voluntary curbside service. So just as Alderman Petrelli had requested, that we asked our citizens to help out in this time by voluntarily taking their trash to the curb. If they leave their trash at the back door, it will still be picked up. So Marshall, it will be up to you and Dave to come up with a good plan to make sure that the citizens understand that we're just asking this on a short-term basis and that it's voluntary. It's not a mandatory curbside, a voluntary. Number two, that we are asking the company to explore the possibility of hiring subcontractors. I know that there are several independent providers that provide garbage service in the county that may be available. So I would ask this motion that the company consider hiring subcontractors to help them out in this bind and to provide Public Works a response on your results of a subcontractor within the next 5 days. The next is, I feel a responsibility that we do have an obligation to enforce the contract. I have not done investigation into whether the company should be fined for the month of June. I don't know if they should, but we have to rely on our staff to advise us if they meet the threshold and if a fine is appropriate. So my motion would also ask for Dave, Marshall, and John to get together and to come up to let the Public Works know at a future meeting if an enforcement action and fines is appropriate for the company. I'm not prejudging that. I don't know if they are, but the staff has got to advise us, and John got to have a major role in that part of the. So just at a future meeting, staff will let us know if enforcement action is warranted. Number 4, I would like for the company to begin reporting to the staff the number of failures over 24 hours. So when a service is not picked up and it's over 24 hours, the company would provide us a notice that there are 50 customers that are having to wait over 24 hours until we can pick up their service. Also, as Alderman Brown suggested, I think it's a good one that when the company is aware that there is going to be a major event of missing garbage, to immediately our interim public works director of that potential so that he can inform the board and that we can take whatever steps necessary. So that kind of upfront notice, I think, would improve communication between. So those are the major points that I would recommend, and I'll put that out as a motion just so we can move forward. And I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I have got, believe it or not, sports fans, I actually have most of that written down. While Alderman Robertson was writing or extending his remarks right there, I was writing the motion down to the committee. So I don't know if Alderman Campbell, I don't think Alderman Edwards needs it repeated. Do you need it repeated?
No, I don't. I was writing down like you were doing. I was jotting down the highlights, like the voluntary curbside service, explore independent contractor to help out.
There's been a proper motion, and there is a proper motion has been made, but there has been no second. So do I have a second?
For terms of discussion, I'll be glad to second this motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. I've just been notified that we can go now till 4:30, and then we got to shut it down. So we've got some time right now. So, okay, Steve Brown is waving at me. Thank you, Steve. I didn't see your little other mechanical hand, blue hand up. So
it's up.
Alderman Brown, go ahead.
Okay, I've just got a question on the motion, and this is a committee meeting, so this is a 3-person vote, I'm assuming.
Right, that's exactly right. Yes, sir.
And being this does not change the contract, will this motion come before the board, or will it be planned on being implemented immediately?
Well, I would ask John Bradley that, but I would imagine it would have to come to the board. John, am I correct?
Yes, I do not think that the committee has the ability to take that action to bind anyone. You can certainly make a request. And I think what Mr. Robertson said, I think makes sense. But if you wanted something that was actually binding, the whole board would need to vote on it. But that doesn't mean we can't go ahead and ask people to voluntarily, as he suggested, to help out short term if they wanted to voluntarily take their trash to the road. I mean, that's because the board can't enforce that anyway. I mean, because we're not changing the contract. All it is would be a request. We're not trying to make them do it. It's just it would just, as I understand the motion, it would just be a voluntary effort. Is that correct, Dr. Roberson?
Yes, sir.
So that part wouldn't take any action by anyone, I wouldn't think. I think the part about the staff advising the committee and then ultimately the board about fines, that might be something that would be worthwhile to go before the board.
Yes, sir. I agree with that. Thank you, John. Did that answer your question, Steve?
Well, it answers half of it. Here's the second half of it.
Okay.
So if you all vote on Mr. Robertson's, I don't know what that's called, resolution. If you vote on his proposal, there you go. If you vote on his proposal in the affirmative, Mr. Bradley, you said that we can go ahead and ask people to voluntarily bring their garbage to the curb. I might do that to one of my neighbors, but I certainly would not want our Public Works Department or Executive Department or anybody to put that out on Facebook or social media that we're asking the community to do that. Because this whole deal right here would need to be debated at the board again, because it's not only a financial deal, it's an upset the constituent deal.
I think, Mr. Brown, if I could respond, I think that Alderman Robertson would probably agree to amend his motion to say, subject to the approval of the board of mayor and alderman next Tuesday. That'd be all right, Mr. Robertson.
I mean, I don't know that it's going to pass the three members of the committee. I guess I'm just trying to put forward a motion that we can move forward on. But no, I don't have any objection to have a full debate on this full board.
I don't mind seconding that, adjusting my second to his motion.
Okay, so there's been a motion. Well, actually,
And
I honestly think I heard Eddie say he wanted to just incorporate that in his motion. That's what I think I heard him say, John.
I think so.
I do too. And I think Alderman Campbell said he would second that motion. Is that correct?
yes, sir, I did. So we can have the discussion of it. And since it's been amended or adjusted, I would say it's fine. It's still second.
Sure. Yes, sir. By all means. Are both the two motion, the sponsor or the motion, Alderman Robertson and Alderman Campbell, are y'all through making a statement on that?
Go ahead, Eddie. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
Well, no, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Robertson, Alderman Robertson.
I have a question for John, because I'm not recommending enforcement action, recommending any fines. I'm just directing the staff to investigate and to bring back to the board any conclusions or recommendations on enforcement. So I'm not recommending it. I don't know if it's appropriate or not. You know, I haven't done the investigation, but I think the staff would need to do that investigation and bring back to public works whether, you know, we recommend that to the board or not. That's all.
I have something to say.
Yes, sir, Alderman Campbell.
I was just going to ask Waste Pro if they've come up with any solutions through this conversation that we've had right here now, talking about adding trucks, if it be a pickup truck with a tipper cart on the back of it and a non-CDL driver type crew, or even additional route servicing trucks to help lighten the load, since you've increased your tonnage to help cover our city for this contract. Now, I've been always a curbside person for over 20 plus years. I mean, I always take mine to the curb. It's probably a 75-foot walk with a can, roll it over there, park it, and come back and pick it up later. But also the neighbors around me, everyone takes their trash to the curbside over here on Rebecca Drive and Rebecca Court, just to point that out. And I agree, volunteerism is nice, but there's a bunch of issues with trying to take this contract and make it something it's not.
Okay, so to put it bluntly, Pat, no, we're not adding equipment. There's roughly 19,000 homes, divide that by 5 days, divide that by 10 trucks. That's 380 homes per truck.
I've done the math on it. I know.
Yeah, that is the smallest routes I have ever. Okay.
It seems to be a problem though, sir.
It's head count.
Well, it seems to be a problem. There's some that are repetitively missed.
I understand that.
You know, yep. Just
we've had 20%.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I believe we got plenty of equipment out there. We do have one pickup truck out there. Probably could use another. We do have one. Right now, just this division is not unlike other divisions. It's staffing is what it is. So this was the reason we seen it coming. we didn't think it was going to get to us. And we've kind of called this, I don't know what y'all call in this new version, but we've kind of called this the round 2 of the corona, you know, because the first stay at home work order and everything seemed to be opening up and things were getting more loose. Then all of a sudden we've got more cases. Okay. So round 2 has hit us much harder than the first round. So it's staffing is what it is, plain and simple. We're continuing trying to recruit. Spent money on billboards right there close to the transfer station. You come off of right there before you get to the transfer station or the billboard there. We spent money there advertising. So it's staffing. That's why we raised our hand and asked, you know, we could come up with some type of solution here as a group. Have we made some errors? Have we made some mistakes? Yes, we have. But we're in uncharted waters. As far as the missed pickups, Mr. Robertson, I believe you asked a question. In Track E's that shows you when the work order was put in and it shows you when it was closed. So the city's already got the information on when they were serviced. So all that information is in Track E's. I believe there's a report that can be ran out of that. Lori, Kate, and I will take a look at that to see what the average time is on it. So that should be and I don't know if Marshall and them have that ability or have looked at the reporting system out of Track East. Again, I think we've got enough equipment. I need to get some people in. And right now I'm just having a difficult time doing that, Pat, Mr. Campbell.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On this motion here, I'd like to see us drop the voluntary curbside service. And the reason why I say that is because if we put that out there, we're going to have our constituents start saying, I'm not getting what I'm paying for, and I would like a tax break, a tax cut. Because we've just cut service, they're going to ask for a tax cut. So, I mean, that's a double-edged sword right there. I volunteer, take my trash to the curb, just like the people here on my cul-de-sac behind my house do the same thing. And my neighbors to the left and right of me across the street. And well, matter of fact, as far as I can see to the left and right of me, when I walk outside, everybody takes their trash to the curb. So I would like to see some form of, I think the extra pickup truck would help out a lot there, Roland. Really do. So I hope you really consider that one long and hard, just to help get through this spot here we're in, because it doesn't take a CDL driver's license to man that truck. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
All right. Okay. Eddie.
I agree to remove the voluntary curbside from my motion, as Alderman Campbell has suggested. I do think that it might cause confusion. I guess I was just trying to look at any possible way to try to help lessen the workload, but I will remove it. Thank you.
Okay, so you're withdrawing or taking out of your motion the volunteering of the trash to the curb. Is that correct?
At Alderman Campbell's request, I have.
Yes, and the reason why I say that is because we already have enough issues with getting the trash picked up, or curbside, however you want to call it. And I realize we're trying to get to a bump in the road right now, but the more layers of we're doing curbside, we're not tax cuts, things of this nature. And I get it. We got to come up with a solution here, and that's what we're working on. And we're far from it right now, but we're working on it. So let's keep working on it.
So it's your intent to remain the backdoor pickup.
Yes, sir. If that's what people want now.
Okay.
Like I said,
No,
that part of the contract is not, just keep it the way it is.
Yeah.
Because
okay. Yes. Okay. So we're going to keep that part the way that it is, the backdoor pickup, and then what did I write down? How I can't even.
Because while I've been sitting here, I've had 3 constituents send me notes stating that, hey, I pay for this service. I want this service, and I expect to get this service. While I'm sitting here, I've had like 3 or 4 constituents send me text messages, and they've also told me about their trash is still sitting there from Tuesday of last week, waiting to be picked up. Berrywood Court, for instance, Mr. Dumont has let me know that, and a few other people have let me know that. So,
all right. So we're gonna keep the backdoor pickup, we're gonna ask the company to explore. Now, I don't know, I don't know, Mr. Joyner, you might have already told us otherwise on this, but we're gonna ask you to explore subcontractors group.
I said I would.
You would not, or you would?
I would.
Okay, great. Okay. That's real good. You can just look, yeah, for 90 days, I think it is. Is that correct, Mr. Robertson?
No, I didn't say how long. I said that the company should inform us within 5 days.
Okay, within 5 days. Okay.
I'm going to leave it up to Marshall and the company how long they
Okay.
continue with the subcontractor.
Well, here's the thing. If Marshall can't, it's whether it's illegal or not, we might have to come back with a meeting to make to amend that motion for the 90 days. I don't know that, but I'll research it and see. But okay, then responds, you're right, within the next 5 days. Enforce the contract if the fine was appropriate, and that's Dave, Robert, and Marshall. Is that correct?
Dave,
Bradley.
John, Dave, John,
And
Marshall.
say again?
It would be Marshall, Dave, Lamar, and John Bradley.
Oh, and John.
And
Okay,
again,
sorry, John.
I'm not saying enforce, but just investigate and bring us back a report.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that, John. I apologize. Okay, if it's fine. Okay, company report to, okay. Yeah, and then also the company to report if there are any problems with the staff failing, like you don't have a driver or somebody, report that to the city Public Works Department, and then they'll notify the alderman of that particular area. Okay.
So basically,
Yes, sir.
Can we nail that last statement down a little bit more of they're going to notify who and who's going to notify us, so I can be looking for that. Go notify Pat's raised his hand.
My intent would be that the company would notify Public Works, Mr. Boyd, and then Mr. Boyd would notify us if there's going to be a major miss.
Did everybody understand that? I know this is kind of difficult, but it's not. It's just tedious work. Alderman Campbell, did you?
I just want to add to this that the continuous rolling schedule that Alderman Petrelli had mentioned, like if you're missed on Tuesday, on Wednesday when they start their day, they pick up where they left off on Tuesday before they go start the Wednesday routes. Go ahead and just continuously roll right on through, because some of the problems we've had, even in Ward 2, people were missed on Tuesday and they're still looking at their trash on Monday of the following.
Yeah, as Alderman Petrelli said, we've had that same
right now while
situation.
this meeting's going on about that. So just to let you know, I just want to make sure that is part of the process moving forward.
Okay, we've got about 10 minutes before I call for a vote. Does, with not long, like I do on the board sometimes, some long drawn out talk that I pontificate up there with just some short, does everybody feel pretty comfortable with this? I mean, at face value, because it's coming back to you. It'll be coming back to you. Yes, ma'am, Alderman Cunningham, and you need to
turn your mic on.
I'll get it. Oh, you got it. Go ahead.
Just to let you all know that the citizens of Hendersonville expect us to come up with some answers after this meeting. We don't have any answers. We don't even have a commitment from Waste Pro.
Well, they've committed,
I mean,
and I appreciate your
they've
comment.
not committed. They've committed zero so far. And, in all due respect, I mean, I voted for Waste Pro. Would I do it again to change contractors a year later? Absolutely not. It was probably the worst vote that I've made in 10 years. And with all due respect.
Our commitment is to this contract.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. I wish I could respond to that, but I can't. I'll just let my vote do the talking. Anyone? Oh, Alderman Sprouse.
was the idea of the rolling routes part of this? And is this something that Waste Pro would really consider working on? I have some concerns about that just because if you're in a line, you understand the line if you can see it. But if you have Monday pickup, you're expecting Monday pickup. I'm having folks who are calling me on Monday and Tuesday at lunch because the guys are normally there by 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning saying, I'm afraid they've missed me already. If we have a situation to where Tuesday's delay gets pushed to Wednesday's delay gets pushed to Thursday, then I don't know how we communicate that with the people. Seems like we're just trying to, we ended up multiplying it and people wouldn't have expectations. I'm just one of those for whatever is the cleanest way to provide service while trying to communicate it with folks, because you're not going to know. And Ward 2 is split on Monday and Tuesday. So people on Tuesdays aren't going to know that their service is coming late because of what happened on the other side of the creek.
Point well taken, Alderman Sprouse. Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand Alderman Sprouse's concern. I get that, but at least you have back-to-back service on Ward 2. You've got Monday and Tuesday. Ward 1 has Tuesday and Friday. So if Tuesday gets missed, that part of Ward 1, last week, they weren't picked up till Friday, and I realized that, it's an inconvenience if everybody's day gets bumped by a day. But rather than people's service getting bumped by 3 or 4 days, which is what we had to deal with last week, if it doesn't get picked up, we're going to have to be told by Waste Pro, hey, here are the streets that we're going to pick up tomorrow. Just send out a nightly memo to Marshall or Dave and they forward it to us. Or Waste Pro agrees to, yes, we're going to get it the very next day so we don't have to have a bunch of discussion about it, to just keep it flowing. And they work through Saturday or whatever, Saturday and Sunday, to get every ward picked up. But if it all stays in the same order, the worst citizens will have to deal with is waiting 1 day versus 3 or 4 days, because that's what Ward 1 had last week. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Hearing
Chairman Skidmore, I have one. Chairman Skidmore.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question for John Bradley. Do you think we could have an executive session about this sometime soon so we can possibly talk about enforcement of the contract and even possibly ending the contract? I would like for us to be able to speak freely with our city attorney about this. Maybe sometime before the next BOMA meeting, maybe 30 minutes before the interviews. I think those are tomorrow night or Thursday night. I just didn't know what our city attorney's position on that was.
That would be,
yeah,
it's tomorrow night's when that is. It's not Thursday night, the interviews.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would like to have an executive session, because when we're in a public meeting, it's kind of hard to discuss with our attorney.
Alderman Edwards, typically for us to have an executive session, there has to be either litigation or threatened litigation at least. And I have not heard that yet. Obviously, with some of the discussions taking place, that's potential. That's certainly a potential outcome of this contract. But at this point, I've not heard anyone threaten to sue or be sued. So it's hard to legally have an executive session in that just to discuss a contract. But I certainly can discuss it individually with aldermen, and I'm happy to do that based on some of the things we talked about today.
Well, okay, thank you. I'm extremely disappointed in this contract, and I would like to even talk about possibly ending it or enforcing it as much as we can. So I'll probably speak with.
Yeah, Alderman Edwards, there's specific language in the contract explaining what has to be done prior to termination. It requires certain notice things and various aspects that I'll be happy to discuss with you or any other member of the board, but not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, you're very welcome, Rustin. A great question. All right, does anyone else need, we've got about 5 minutes left. Is any of the committee ready to vote? If y'all are ready to roll, we'll do it.
Can I say something, Mr. Skidmore, real quick?
Yes.
This was a productive call. We do have one customer by the name of Julianne. She didn't give her address, but anyway, she is actually going to start bringing her trash to the curb. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Okay, there's been a motion and a proper second. Hearing no further discussion to vote, is everybody this will be a voice vote. So all in favor, does anybody need this motion repeated? I've got it all here on paper, and I'm sure that they've got it at City Hall too. If they don't, they can call me or I can fax this to them. It doesn't make any difference to me. All right, hearing no other discussion on the vote or the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye when I call the name, and then likewise with the no. Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Roberson.
Aye.
And the chair votes no. That is the end of our discussion. If there should be no other discussion or anything like that, it should be done. This meeting is now officially adjourned, and we'll see you guys. I guess, John, is it Zoom tomorrow? Are we Zooming it? Okay. Zoom it is. See you guys tomorrow. By the way, it passed 2-1.